Police, arrest him. He's a thief." The words cut through the afternoon air like shattered glass on pavement. Instantly, heads snapped around, curiosity blooming across the crowd. It was a pristine day in New York. Sunlight streamed through the trees that framed the front of the Horizon Grand, a luxury hotel where everything was supposed to gleam, from the white marble steps to the polished glass doors reflecting the city's rhythm. Standing at the top of those steps was Miranda Cross, the hotel's sharply dressed director, her manicured finger aimed squarely at a man who'd just exited a yellow cab. Her voice didn't tremble, not even a little. It rang out with clipped precision, like a line she'd rehearsed many times before. Guests froze mid-motion. A couple pushing a stroller halted. A cyclist slowed down, drawn by the sudden shift in energy. What had been a routine check-in had morphed into something far more charged. A scene, a judgment, a public reckoning. But Julian Marks? He didn't flinch. There he stood, beside a modest black carry-on, wearing a crisp white button-down and neatly pressed chinos. No flashy jewelry, no entourage. To most, he probably looked like just another traveler checking in. But there was something in the way he held himself, steady, centered, unhurried, that hinted otherwise. Miranda's crimson heels echoed sharply as she descended the steps with purpose. Her tone was clipped and cold. "Sir, this establishment does not tolerate deception. Hand over your bag, or we'll be forced to call security." A hushed "whoa" slipped from someone in the crowd. Someone else leaned toward a friend and asked, "Is he really stealing?" Nearby, a tourist instinctively lifted her phone, already recording. The calm outside the Horizon Grand shattered, replaced by a hum of unease and curiosity. Julian's eyes stayed fixed on Miranda. His voice, low and measured, reached the growing crowd. "Do what you have to do." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't step forward. And that calm, his refusal to escalate, somehow made the moment heavier. A young woman near the curb whispered into her phone, "This doesn't feel right." More heads nodded, unsure but watching, caught somewhere between bystander and witness. Narration pause. And that's the pause. Before we continue, where are you tuning in from? Drop your city or country in the comments. If you believe in dignity and accountability, hit like and subscribe. These stories are about truth, and you're part of that. Back to the story. Julian Marks stood just beneath the marble steps, his carry-on still resting quietly beside him. But Miranda Cross's accusation had already sent a ripple through the sidewalk crowd. The doorman stood motionless. A traveler paused with his suitcase mid-roll. Even inside the hotel, the pianist struck a wrong note before the lobby music stopped altogether. Miranda raised her chin, lips curling into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You don't exactly look like you belong here," she said, loudly enough for the entire sidewalk to hear. Then came the backup. Daniel Kim, a young staff member from the front desk, hustled down the steps. He clutched a clipboard tight, nerves playing on his face. "Ma'am, about his." Miranda cut him off with a snap. "Open the bag. Now." Two uniformed guards flanked Julian within seconds, their shadows stretching long in the sunlight. One reached for the zipper. Julian didn't move. He didn't flinch. His gaze remained on Miranda, unshaken. The memory of being 25 and forced to leave a hotel lobby for simply not fitting in crept back, uninvited but familiar. That scar still stung. The guard's hand paused. Julian's unblinking calm seemed to unnerve him. The crowd murmured again. A woman pushing a stroller said, "This just feels wrong." A biker slowed even more, angling his phone toward the scene. Clara Ruiz, known online for her travel videos, raised her voice. "He just got out of a cab. You accused him before he even walked through the doors." Miranda's stare snapped toward her. "Mind your business. He's not staying here." She yanked a plastic keycard from Daniel's clipboard, Julian's keycard from his earlier check-in, and held it up. "This is fake. We don't let frauds stay here." Gasps echoed around the block. Mr. Whitaker, a well-known VIP guest, had just stepped out of a sleek black sedan. His eyes locked on Julian. His lips stayed shut, but his tightened expression said enough. Julian finally spoke, his voice a notch above a whisper, yet it silenced the scene. "You've already decided who I am, haven't you?" Miranda's smirk deepened, convinced she had full control of the moment. "Security, remove him from the property." The guards advanced slowly. Cameras lifted. Phones captured everything. What had started as a quiet arrival had become a live broadcast of accusation and humiliation. Still, Julian didn't resist. He let the moment unfold. Because storms don't always need chasing. Sometimes, you let them come straight to you. The guards' boots scraped against the stone, echoing like a warning. Their intent was no longer protocol. It was performance. Miranda's voice, cutting through the heat, turned colder. "Men like him think they can walk in, flash a card, and pretend they belong. Not here. Not today." Her words struck like pebbles tossed into a still pond, sending waves across the gathered crowd. A teenager whispered, "This is so wrong." A tourist clutched her bags tighter, watching Miranda with narrowed eyes. "And Clara?" She didn't whisper anymore. "He gave you ID. He handed you a room key. And you're calling him a thief?" Miranda turned sharply toward her, voice now edged with threat. "Delete that video, or our legal team will be in touch." Clara Ruiz didn't back down. "It's already streaming." Her voice wavered just slightly, but the conviction behind it held strong. Daniel Kim, the front desk clerk, shifted nervously where he stood. He'd only been with the hotel a couple of years, but even he knew what Miranda was saying wasn't true. That key card? It was legitimate. He opened his mouth, but the words caught. His eyes flicked between Julian and Miranda, and his silence spoke louder than anything he could have said. He was scared. Julian still hadn't moved. His bag sat untouched at his side, the same way it had when he'd stepped out of the cab. His gaze moved slowly across the faces around him. Tourists, locals, staff, none of whom knew who he really was. To them, he was just a man being accused in broad daylight, cast as guilty before a word had been proven. Miranda took another step down, her heels striking the marble like warning shots. She lifted the key card in the air for all to see. "This," she declared, "it's a prop. He doesn't have a room. He has no reservation. And if he doesn't leave now, I'm calling the police." The threat dropped into the crowd like a stone into still water. A woman carrying grocery bags stopped in her tracks. "Police?" she echoed, her tone rising with disbelief. "For what?" Miranda turned on her like a lash. "Trespassing. Attempted theft." The sidewalk buzzed with murmurs now, disbelief spreading like wildfire. That's when Mr. Whitaker, a longtime VIP and respected fixture at the Horizon Grand, finally spoke. His voice, low and steady, cut through the noise like a blade. "Miranda," he warned, "take a breath." He stepped forward, his tailored suit catching the light, silver hair immaculate. "I've been coming here for 2 decades, he said, eyes narrowing slightly. "I've never seen anything like this." But Miranda stood her ground. "With all due respect, Mr. Whitaker, that man is not who he claims to be." Julian spoke again, calm and composed, his words landing with weight. "I don't need to pretend." The crowd stilled. Phones lifted closer, recording every beat of this very public scene. Miranda let out a dry, brittle laugh. "Then prove it," she snapped. "Open the bag. Right here. Right now." It wasn't a request. It wasn't protocol. It was a spectacle, a demand designed to humiliate. Julian didn't move. His stillness spoke volumes. He stood anchored, like the marble beneath him, silent and immovable. And in that pause, something in the crowd began to shift. Because nothing rattles a performance quite like a man who refuses to play along. But Miranda was relentless. She tossed the key card toward the ground. It bounced once on the steps before sliding to rest at Julian's shoes. "Trash," she spat. "That's what this is. You don't have a room. You don't even belong here." Gasps slipped from the onlookers. She really said that. A woman whispered under her breath. A group of college students paused on their bikes. One muttered, "Yo, this is wild." The sidewalk had become more than just a transit space. It was a spotlight, a witness stand, a stage. Daniel bent forward, reaching instinctively to retrieve the discarded card, but Miranda's eyes snapped to him. "Leave it," she barked. His hands froze mid-reach. He straightened slowly, shoulders hunched like he wanted to disappear. And still, Julian said nothing. His calm now felt like gravity, pulling the crowd inward, weighing against the chaos. Then Miranda went further than anyone expected. She pulled out her phone and dialed, voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "This is Miranda Cross, director of Horizon Grand," she announced. "I'm reporting a suspected thief. He's refusing to leave. Please dispatch units immediately." The words hit the sidewalk like a thunderclap. "For this?" Someone shouted from the curb. "You're really calling the cops over this?" "This is profiling," another voice murmured. Clara's livestream blew up in real time. Comments flooded in, angry and fast. "This is abuse. He's literally standing still. She's using her power to humiliate him." Mr. Whitaker clenched his jaw. His voice came out low, but the steel in it was unmistakable. "Miranda," he said, "you might want to reconsider this. If you're wrong." She cut him off without blinking. "I'm not wrong. Just look at him. Look at the bag. Does he seem like someone who booked the penthouse suite?" And that's when Julian finally moved. He reached down, slowly, deliberately, and picked up the key card. He slipped it back into his pocket with care. Then he pulled out his phone and pressed a single button. He didn't shout. He didn't explain. He simply lifted it to his ear. A crisp voice answered on the other end. "This is Layla." Julian's eyes never left Miranda. "It's happening," he said. "Activate internal protocol." There was a crackle on the line. Then Layla's tone shifted, professional and sharp. "Protocol is active, sir. Logging the incident, timestamping now. Pulling hotel compliance logs." He didn't need volume. He had presence. The crowd picked up on it immediately. The air shifted. Even the security guards hesitated, their postures relaxing ever so slightly. Miranda sneered. "You really think calling a friend will save you?" Julian's reply came like the quiet edge of a blade. "Not me, but it'll document this moment for exactly what it is." The murmurs swelled into something louder, curiosity turning into concern. For the first time, Miranda faltered. Just a sliver of something beneath the surface. Uncertainty, fear, exposure. The guards glanced at each other, unsure now. One fidgeted. The other crossed his arms. Neither moved. And just like that, the illusion of her authority cracked. Clara raised her voice. "I saw him arrive. I have the whole thing. He stepped out of a cab and handed over his ID. And now he's a thief?" "This is profiling," she said clearly. "And everyone watching knows it." The woman with the stroller took a step forward. Her voice calm, but resolute. "I don't know this man," she said. "But I know what injustice looks like." She looked down at her daughter, then back up at Miranda, her voice steady now. "I don't want her to grow up thinking this is normal." That sentence landed hard. Gasps rose around them. Heads nodded. Phones lifted even higher, capturing every face, every word, every breath. Then came movement. Mr. Whitaker stepped forward at last, the afternoon sun catching the silver in his hair. His voice carried the weight of years and respect. "Miranda, that's enough," he said. "This is not how we treat people. Not here, not anywhere worth the name hotel." For the first time, Miranda hesitated. The tight smile on her lips wavered. Her eyes flicked across the growing crowd, the circle of witnesses now closing in around her. But then, she doubled down. "You're being fooled," she snapped. "He's lying. People like him always find ways to game the system." Those last three words, "people like him," felt like a slap. The crowd didn't miss it. A collective murmur turned into vocal disapproval. "You can't say that," someone called from the edge. "That's out of line," another shouted. And then came the break in silence that cracked it all open. Daniel Kim, the young front desk clerk, finally spoke. His voice was tight, nervous, but clear. "I saw his name in the system this morning," he said. "Julian Marks. Penthouse suite. The reservation is real." The crowd erupted. Gasps, affirmations, there it is. So why is she lying? Voices layered over each other in a wave of rising disbelief. Miranda spun toward Daniel, her eyes blazing. One more word, and you're fired. But Daniel didn't back down this time. He stepped closer, closer to Julian than to her. Then fire me, he said, loud enough for all to hear. But I won't lie for you. Phones zoomed in instantly, capturing every angle of a young employee choosing truth over fear. Julian still hadn't moved, still hadn't raised his voice. But somehow, his presence loomed larger than Miranda's fury ever could. The crowd wasn't just watching anymore. They were choosing. And in that moment, Miranda Cross, heels sharp, hair perfect, voice fraying, was the one now on trial. Her poise cracked. Color rose in her cheeks. Her jaw tightened as she stepped down the final stair, now standing eye to eye with the man she tried to humiliate. This circus is over, she snapped. He's a fraud, and anyone defending him is complicit. Security, remove them both. She jabbed her finger at Daniel, but the guards didn't move. One cleared his throat quietly. The other shifted his weight, eyes darting from Julian to the sea of camera phones. They weren't about to manhandle a composed guest in front of half the internet. The crowd responded instantly. Are you kidding? Someone barked. This is abuse of power. A woman in sunglasses raised her phone, narrating into her live stream. The hotel director just tried to fire her own employee. In public. On camera. This is wild. Miranda spun toward the cluster of phones. Stop recording. This is private property. But no one stopped. Because they weren't inside anymore. They were on the public sidewalk. And her authority didn't reach that far. If anything, her flailing only made the moment bigger. Mr. Whitaker shook his head slowly, voice calm but unmistakably firm. Miranda, you've lost the room. Every word is being documented. You need to stop before you wreck your own career. She turned on him, eyes blazing. My career, she hissed. I've spent years protecting this hotel's image. I'm not letting some imposter walk in and... Imposter. The word landed like a slap. A low groan rolled through the crowd. Someone muttered, she's done. Another laughed bitterly. Imagine humiliating a guest in front of the whole street. Julian Marks hadn't moved, but his silence was now louder than her outbursts. Then, finally, he lifted his phone again. Layla, he said, calm as ever. Yes, sir, came the voice through the speaker. Log this moment, he said. Every word. Her voice came sharp and immediate. Logged, time-stamped, and archived. The crowd shifted again. This wasn't just a man defending himself anymore. This was someone who had infrastructure, systems, authority, and all of it, wrapped in a silence more powerful than shouting. Miranda crossed her arms, her voice brittle. Log whatever you want. When the police get here, you'll be in handcuffs. Not me. But no one believed her anymore. Her voice didn't carry weight. It carried desperation. She stood alone now, surrounded not by staff, not by supporters, but by phones and witnesses, watching her unravel in real time. And Julian Marks still hadn't raised his voice. The tension broke like a wire snapping. Miranda, her face flushed and trembling, stormed forward until she was nearly chest to chest with him. Without warning, she reached out and grabbed the handle of his carry-on. Gasps burst from the crowd. You can't do that. Someone yelled. That's illegal, another said. But Miranda didn't care. She yanked hard, heels screeching against the marble as she hissed. If you won't open it, I will. She pulled at the zipper. Julian didn't even blink. His hands stayed at his sides. His voice came low, clear, and cold. Take your hand off my property. Every syllable was sharp enough to cut glass. The crowd tensed. Phones zoomed in closer. A teenager murmured, she's completely lost it. Clara Ruiz's voice rang out from her stream. The director of Horizon Grand is now physically grabbing a guest's bag. This is happening live. You're all seeing it. But Miranda kept tugging, her desperation on full display. Her bracelet clinked against the bag's metal clasp, loud, sharp, picked up by every mic in every phone. a harsh, metallic echo of a moment being etched into digital history. And then, a new voice cut through the air. Mr. Whitaker stepped forward again, and this time his voice carried the weight of finality. Miranda, release that bag. She whirled toward him, still clutching the handle. Stay out of this, Mr. Whitaker, she snapped. You're being deceived. But her voice betrayed her, cracked at the edges, unraveling fast. The young mother with the stroller edged forward, her voice trembling but resolute. You don't lay hands on people like that, she said. Not here. Not anywhere. Her daughter, wide-eyed in the stroller, clutched a worn teddy bear, silently absorbing the world around her. And then Daniel Kim moved. He stepped off the marble stairs slowly, deliberately placing himself between Julian and Miranda. His voice shook, but it rang clear. Let go, director. His reservation is real. I entered it myself this morning. The words hit like thunder. Miranda's grip faltered. Her hand trembled on the handle. She tugged once more. This time, it was half-hearted, then let go entirely. The bag dropped to the stone with a flat thud. Julian leaned down, calm and unbothered. He lifted the handle with grace, gently brushing off a bit of dust from the corner. He didn't say a word. And in that stillness, his silence was louder than any accusation. It weighed heavier than any defense. Miranda glanced around, but the faces watching her were no longer passive. The judgment in their eyes was sharp, resolute, unblinking. Every phone lens mirrored back her own collapse. She tried to recover, straightened her blazer, forced a smirk, but it didn't land. You all think you've seen something meaningful, she said, waving a dismissive hand. You haven't seen anything yet. When the police get here, you'll understand. But the crowd didn't buy it. Not anymore. The bag was back in Julian Marks's hand, untouched, unblemished, and symbolic now of everything she had tried and failed to tarnish. Julian rose slowly, deliberately, as if not even gravity dared to rush him. Then, for the first time, he looked away from Miranda and turned to the crowd. The sunlight caught his profile. Phones zoomed in. And then, he spoke, just one word. Enough. It sliced through the murmurs like a blade. Miranda flinched. The crowd went still. Julian raised his phone again. Pressed one button. Layla, he said evenly. Yes, sir, came the immediate reply. Escalate protocol. I want every word transcribed. Every video mirrored. Every witness documented. Her voice returned, crisp and cool. Understood. Escalation engaged. Digital backups are active. Legal team has been notified. The guards shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Whitaker's brows lifted. He could feel it too. This was no longer a simple customer dispute. Miranda attempted a laugh, but it fizzled before it left her throat. What is this? You think calling your assistant makes you powerful? Julian turned to face her once more. His tone was calm, low, but undeniable. This isn't a call, he said. It's a record, and you've written every word yourself. A gasp swept the crowd. Clara's live stream lit up. Comments racing across the screen. Who IS'd this guy? Protocol escalation? That's corporate-level response. She's toast. Miranda's smirk collapsed into a clenched jaw. Her arms crossed tighter. You're bluffing, she said. You're just some guest who scammed a card. Julian's eyes didn't blink. Then tell me, he replied. Why does your system recognize my name? Why does my reservation carry executive clearance? And why are your threats now archived across 3 secure servers? More gasps. Daniel gave a faint nod, his voice almost a whisper, but it carried. He's telling the truth. I saw the clearance this morning. Shut up, Daniel. Miranda barked. But the authority was gone. In its place was fear. Julian took one step forward, rising a level above her. The crowd shifted with him, drawn into his gravity. You tried to strip me of dignity in public, humiliate me, and you thought silence meant submission. He paused. Let it land. But silence, he said, isn't weakness. It's warning. That line broke the dam. The crowd reacted. Cheers, shouts, phones clicking like a paparazzi wall. Miranda's eyes darted across the faces, searching for someone to save her, but found only strangers. Every last one of them watching, every phone glowing like a verdict. Julian Marks stood one step above her now. The sunlight broke through the trees behind him, casting a soft glow across his shoulders. The moment held. Then, he delivered the final blow. Soft, steady, absolute. You want proof? He reached into his jacket, pulled out a matte black wallet, and slid from it a sleek metal access card. Gold insignia shimmered beneath its surface. He held it up just long enough for every camera to catch the detail, then turned and pressed it to the sensor on the hotel's glass door. Beep. The door unlocked instantly, flashing green. The crowd gasped. Daniel's jaw dropped. Clara whispered to her live stream, "Oh my God, that's executive clearance." Julian let the moment breathe. Then he tucked the card back into his wallet without fanfare. His eyes never left Miranda. "You called me a thief," he said. "A liar. An imposter." He stepped forward once more. He now towered over her, not just physically, but with presence. "But here's the truth." He turned, speaking not just to her, but to every lens, every witness, every person tuned in across the internet. "This hotel belongs to me." The sidewalk erupted. Gasps. Cheers. Disbelief. The full detonation of truth at last. Shouts overlapped like crashing waves. Clara nearly dropped her phone as her live stream chat exploded in real time. "Wait, he owns it." Plot twist. She's done. Miranda reeled backward, lips parting in disbelief, but no words formed. You can't." Julian's voice cut in, smooth and solid. "I can. And I do." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "I built the Horizon Grand. From the foundation to the crown molding. Every stone beneath your feet, every paycheck you've collected, every guest you've insulted, it all runs through me." The crowd erupted. Some clapped, others burst out laughing in disbelief. A man at the curb shouted, "She called the owner a thief." Daniel lowered his head, the full wave of relief finally washing over him. Mr. Whitaker let out a slow breath, like a final puzzle piece had just clicked into place. Miranda's voice cracked with desperation. No, this is a trick. You hacked the system. That card." "Stop," Julian said, voice like steel. "Before you embarrass yourself further." He let the silence hang there, thick as stone. "You thought you could take my dignity with assumptions and volume," he said. "But dignity was never yours to give. And now the world sees you for exactly who you are." Every phone caught it. I felt it. In a single sentence, the power flipped. Miranda Cross, once the unchallenged authority at the Horizon Grand, now stood exposed, cornered, small, and stripped of control at the gates of a hotel that no longer answered to her. The echo of his words, "This hotel belongs to me," set off another tidal wave of reaction. Applause burst from the sidewalk, hesitant at first, then growing in strength. Some cheered. Others shouted in vindication. A teenager spun his phone around and yelled into his own stream, "He's the owner. She called the owner a thief." Daniel's face drained of color. His clipboard almost slipped from his grip. "Oh God," he whispered. He knew now how close his silence had come to costing him everything. Still, the relief of having spoken up when it mattered flickered behind his eyes. Mr. Whitaker gave a solemn nod. "I knew something felt wrong the moment she spoke," he said. "Julian Marks, I should have recognized you sooner." That quiet admission spread like gasoline, igniting the crowd into a frenzy of realization. Phones angled higher. Cameras captured every reaction. Clara spun slowly with her phone, filming the sea of faces. "You're all witnessing this," she said breathlessly. She humiliated the man who built this hotel. Miranda spun around in panic. Her composure had vanished. Her arms, once confidently crossed, now hung limp. Her lips trembled. Her face was ghost pale. She tried to speak, but nothing came. Only broken syllables, smothered beneath the roar of voices. Even the two guards, who'd once looked ready to escort Julian off the property, now stepped back. One of them muttered, We almost laid hands on the boss. The young mother stepped closer, stroller in front, one hand gently clapping. Show her, she said softly. Show them all. Her daughter clapped, too, small, pure, piercing through the chaos. And in that moment, Miranda Cross wasn't a director anymore. She wasn't in charge. She was a spectacle, undone, publicly and permanently, while the man she tried to diminish stood taller than ever, backed not by security, but by truth and undeniable proof. The applause slowly quieted, just enough for Julian Marks's voice to carry once more. He stood firm on the marble steps, one hand on his bag, the other holding his phone like a gavel. Layla, he said calmly, never breaking his stare. Yes, sir, came the crisp reply. Initiate termination protocol. Gasps sucked the air from the street. Understood. Confirm name? Julian's voice came cold and final. Miranda Cross. Effective immediately. A hush dropped like a curtain. Phones caught every word. Daniel froze. The guards instinctively stepped farther away, as if Julian now emitted a silent field of authority. Layla's voice returned, firm and sharp. Termination logged. Credentials revoked. Cross's access to Horizon systems permanently disabled. Right then, Miranda's wrist buzzed violently. Her staff app flashed red. Access denied. The tiny notification cut louder than anything she'd said all day. Gasps spread like wildfire. She just got fired, someone whispered. In public, another added. That's justice. Miranda staggered back, heels wobbling against the marble. You can't do this, she stammered. Not here. Not like this. Julian's answer came calm, devastating in its simplicity. I just did. No shouting. No drama. Just truth. Clara turned her phone to herself, voice trembling with disbelief. He terminated her. Live. In front of the whole block. Mr. Whitaker shook his head slowly, arms folded, not out of anger toward Julian, but in disbelief at Miranda's downfall. I warned you, he murmured. Miranda's hands trembled as she grasped at her phone, trying to unlock something, undo the damage, but everything was locked. She was frozen out, her power gone. Julian Marks stood tall, framed by the golden light of the afternoon sun. The crowd, once restless, tense, was now silent. Not from fear, from respect. Even the sounds of city traffic seemed distant now, as if all of New York had paused to witness what had just unfolded on the marble steps of the Horizon Grand. Julian let the silence breathe, and then he spoke, quiet, composed, but commanding enough for every ear to hear. You thought silence meant weakness, he said, gaze still fixed on Miranda. But silence, Julian said, was the test. He let the moment hang, just long enough. And today you failed. The crowd erupted. This time, the applause was thunderous, bouncing off the hotel's sleek glass walls and ricocheting into the street. Cheers spilled into laughter, some in sheer disbelief at how swiftly the entire dynamic had flipped. Heads shook, mouths hung open, and phones never stopped rolling. Every angle, every cheer, every stunned expression was captured. Miranda didn't move. She stood motionless, drenched in daylight, surrounded by witnesses, her power melting into the concrete beneath her heels. Her voice tried to rise, but cracked halfway. No one heard it, not over the echo of judgment surrounding her. She was no longer the director of anything. She was a cautionary tale unraveling live. A fall from grace recorded in high definition. Julian Marks adjusted the strap on his bag. Without rush, without fanfare, he took the final steps up to the entrance. The glass doors spun open with a soft whoosh, like the curtain lifting on a new act. Then, just before stepping inside, he turned back. The crowd held its breath. I don't need a video to prove who I am, he said, his voice steady, resonant, unmistakably final. I am the result of it. That sentence landed like the final frame of a film, the kind of line that echoes long after the credits roll. Phones caught it, every one of them. It would travel across timelines, across screens, across countries, proof that dignity doesn't scream. It speaks with certainty. And with that, Julian Marks turned and walked through the doors of his hotel. No longer just a man under suspicion, but the confirmed owner, the leader, the one who transformed public humiliation into accountability and turned silence into a declaration of power. And outside, beneath the whispering trees and the glow of smartphone lenses, something rare lingered in the air. Justice. Not delayed, not debated, delivered. Thank you for watching. Subscribe me and hit the notification bell to not miss new stories. Bye.